The latest on UN Climate Summit COP26 in Glasgow, Xie Zhenhua, a UN climate negotiator and special climate envoy for China, spoke to reporters Tuesday at the UN Climate Summit in Glasgow, Scotland. China has been much talked about as a major polluter but has been little seen at the summit. Chinese President Xi Jinping has not joined the more than 100 other world leaders at the event, addressing observers and delegates in a written message on Monday instead. Xie, who played a pivotal role in talks leading to the 2015 Paris Climate Accord, underscored China's stance that the United States and other developed nations should be the ones doing more to cut climate-damaging emissions faster, not China. "We have already been making our biggest possible effort to address climate change," Xie said, saying China was unable to start reining in its reliance on coal-fired power plants any quicker than it was doing. So regarding the fact that China is the current largest emitter, it's because China is at a special development stage, Xie said. Kampala, Uganda, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, says Africa's women must be empowered as part of broader efforts to build the continent's resilience amid climate change.
Kristalina Georgieva spoke Tuesday before an Africa-focused summit at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, Scotland. "When women are empowered, communities are so much better," she said. She said pre-existing obstacles to adaptation must be removed, including by widening access to credit for farmers as well as investing in resilient infrastructure. Georgieva said the world has to do more to support Africa's appeal for help to adapt to climate change. African leaders are pressing their demand for the international community to do more to support the continent of 1.3 billion people, which contributes least to global emissions but is the most vulnerable to climate change. The African Union seeks $12.5 billion to implement a $25 billion climate change adaptation program over 5 years. Half of that money is coming from the African Development Bank. Kampala, Uganda. The head of the African Union says the international community must support the continent's efforts to adapt to climate change, including a program that requires $25 billion over 5 years. Speaking Tuesday at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, President Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo said the continent needs the world to raise $12.5 billion, with the balance coming from the African Development Bank. In his remarks before a meeting of world leaders, Tshisekedi noted that the global effort on climate change can't be won unless it is won in Africa. He said he hopes the money will be raised before the next climate conference. "It is a starting point rather than a ceiling, and it will contribute to building trust and confidence," he said. The continent of 1.3 billion people contributes least to climate change but will suffer most from its effects, according to experts. African leaders and climate campaigners have long called for technology transfers and substantial cash donations to help the continent build resilience. Glasgow, world leaders looked at a Formula One car made from recycled plastic and a microwave-sized device that can generate hydrogen fuel Tuesday as they looked to promote innovation to slow climate change at the UN summit in Glasgow. Speaking at the summit, President Joe Biden said our current technology alone won't get us where we need to be. He added we need to invest in breakthroughs. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi touted his country's One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative to develop an interconnected solar grid across time zones. The session was attended by Prince William, Microsoft founder Bill Gates, and Rockefeller Foundation President Rajiv Shah, and moderated by Sky Group CEO Dana Strong. People faced waits of up to an hour to get through security and into the Scottish event campus venue, though the problems were not as acute as on Monday. One complicating factor is the number of different bodies responsible for the event, including the UN, the British government, and the city of Glasgow. He said the Scottish government is working with the UK government and the city of Glasgow to encourage the UN to put in place additional measures to avoid cues such as were seen in the media reports yesterday, and to a lesser extent today. Glasgow, Scotland. The British government is sounding increasingly upbeat about progress at the 26 Colombian pesos climate summit in Glasgow. Going into the 12-day meeting, Prime Minister Boris Johnson gave the talks a 60% chance of keeping alive the goal of limiting climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. But after announcements on halting deforestation and cutting methane emissions, Johnson's spokesman, Max Blaine, said we are starting to see some significant momentum over the last day and a half as we see some real tangible commitments announced. He said a pledge to halt deforestation by 2030, signed by more than 100 countries, was a massive success for COP. Blaine said, "This is a significant step forward, the biggest step forward in protecting the world's forests in a generation." But he stressed that, "We are not complacent. This is not a done deal, by any means." Glasgow, Scotland, the United States and several European countries plan to provide funds and expertise to help South Africa ditch coal and roll out more renewable energy. German officials said South Africa will receive about $8.5 billion in loans and grants over 5 years to manage the country's transition away from coal-fired power plants, which are a major source of greenhouse gas emissions. South Africa gets about 90% of its electricity from coal-fired plants. German Environment Minister Sven Schulz said the partnership announced Tuesday, which is also backed by Britain, France, and the European Union, has the potential to become a blueprint for other regions. One focus of the initiative will be helping to create new jobs for tens of thousands of people in South Africa's coal mining industry. Glasgow, Scotland, countries responsible for almost half the world's methane emissions are signing a pledge Tuesday to cut by at least 30% the amount of the potent greenhouse gas they release into the atmosphere over the next decade. Clamping down on methane flaring and leaks from oil wells and gas pipelines is considered one of the easiest ways to cut emissions. Cutting methane produced from agriculture, in particular by belching cows, is a trickier matter. Dozens of countries, including the United States, European Union members, and Britain, are signing up to the pledge. It is part of a series of methane reduction efforts announced by the Biden administration Tuesday.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.